Good evening and welcome to the Volunteer Town Hall. I'm Sarah Gagnon with Frc Chesapeake. I'm joined here by some of our other partners. We'll start with Ron, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ron Therian, the Director of Programs for Frc Chesapeake.
And we'll go to Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Olnitsky, and I'm the Assistant Director of Virginia, D.C. for Sligo League.
And I'm Jamie Gerganis. I am the operational partner for the Maryland area at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Barron. I'm the head judge in the Maryland region.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kalika White. I am the volunteer coordinator of the Maryland State First Lego League.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. We'll go ahead and get started on the presentation. Welcome to the town hall. That's today. Real quick, a couple of housekeeping points. This is being recorded. And I believe the chat is recorded also. So be aware if you're chatting in Twitch. You do need to have a Twitch account to be able to comment or to ask questions. So if you are not already have a Twitch account, you might want to go ahead and start it if you're looking forward to asking questions. We will save all questions for the end, but as they come up, please go ahead and post them in the chat so that we have them ready at the end. We will go through the Frc Chesapeake volunteer update, followed by First Lego League in Maryland, and last but not least, First Lego League in Virginia and Washington, D.C. All right. And I wanted to start off real quick with saying thank you to all of our volunteers. We are a volunteer-driven organization. We would not be here if it wasn't for everything that our volunteers did to chip in last year. The pandemic definitely created some challenges, and without our volunteers, we could not have pulled off last season. So a big thank you. And so here we are again. We're going to pull off another season with everyone's help. First off, we want to talk about how are we keeping you safe. The health and well-being of all our teams and volunteers continues to be our top priority. We will continue to follow the guidelines and recommendations by local health industries. And I will get into the CDC information a little later. Masks will be mandatory. This is for Frc Chesapeake at all events for everyone. That's teams, volunteers, anyone on site, staff will be wearing a mask. Social distancing will be enforced when appropriate. And this is around keeping teams in their pits, keeping volunteers in their assigned locations. I know that we like to roam and we're social groups, but we are going to do our best to abide by the social distancing to keep us all safe. Consent and release forms will be collected at every event. We are collecting them at every event so that we have contact tracing information and the most up-to-date information on everybody when they get to the event. We have a screening questionnaire. We are kind of following the guidelines of schools with a screening questionnaire that we ask everyone to ask themselves these questions before they come to an event to keep us all safe. We'll look at that in a second. In between events, we do have deep cleaning. We will be wiping down surfaces and using a fogger and that type of stuff to keep us safe. Because of the mask requirement, we are asking that food and drinks need to be consumed outside, and we will be providing space outside for people to, If you want to read the entire COVID policy, you can use the QR code here or the link that is here and will be shared in the chat also. So this is the screening questions. If you have a child in school, you're familiar with this kind of questionnaire that goes out every morning. So we ask everybody to read through this. And if you answer yes to any of these questions, to please not attend and let us know so that we can find somebody else to serve in the role that you were scheduled to do. Again, all of this is available on our website. So looking at COVID projections, certainly the uncertainty and dealing with different surges is presenting some challenges in venue selection. We are doing our best. Glenn and Ron are working in conjunction to find sites, whether it's at school or commercial sites, where we can hold events. As you can see in the scenario that is up here, this is the United States. This is all of the United States. This is not just Virginia and Maryland, but we're continuing to see numbers increase. And there is you can see the projection there, the shaded area with surges. So we're asking for flexibility. Normally by this time we would have our season. We would know where our events were. But because of this, it is giving us some uncertainty, and we're working really hard to make sure that we can find sites to hold events. So on to events. So we are going to be offering both hybrid and remote events this year. So what is a hybrid event? Last year we did hybrid events where 2 teams could attend at a time. We are, and I will go into how many teams in a few seconds are going to be at the events. But a hybrid event offers on-site the matches between robots. We will have 4 robots on the field this year, but the judging will remain remote. And so you will have a time slot that you will be, going in for judging. And so therefore, for a lot of our most vulnerable population, they're still able to do judging. And if you're uncomfortable being at an event, judging is a great choice. The number of on-site team members will be based on COVID, and I will show you our fantastic scale here in a second that Ron came up with. While we won't have on-site spectators, you can watch through Twitch, and I encourage everyone to go out. Our commentators did a fantastic job last year educating the people that were watching on what was going on the field, helping you to get to know the teams better. It really was a very fun experience. And so if it's not the same being in site, it's definitely still very fun to watch. We will have both on-site and virtual volunteer roles available. More to come on that later, and it will be available on our website. And then we will have remote events. A remote event is where the teams will participate completely remotely. So they will send in a video where they score themselves on robot matches, and they will do remote judging. So here's our matrix, our decision matrix. The way you read this is it's an and. So for us to be in low, we have to have the incident rate below 10 and the positivity rate also below 5. For the other categories, it's an or situation. So if we were in moderate for the 7-day incident, but where our positivity rate indicates substantial, then we would fall under substantial. This will be based on the COVID numbers at the location so if you're in an area that is in moderate, but the location where the event is in moderate, it is still going to be a moderate event. And so that we're going with 18 teams on the field. What will change between moderate and substantial, you can see there is the number of team members that are allowed and the number of volunteers that we will have on site. And then obviously at the very high level, we drop down to 8 teams and we drop down to 3 volunteers. This feels pretty similar to what we did last season. Our draft FTC event schedule, I want to emphasize again, this is our draft schedule. Registration is open. We have lots of teams registering. We're really looking forward to an exciting season. Right now, all of these dates are out there, but as teams get registered and sign up, some of these dates may change. We may have more than one event, as well as the venue selection will impact this. So we're just trying to get the date, the dates out here so that people can see them. For the most up-to-date schedule, I encourage you to get this, our events website. That is where you can find the most up-to-date information on our events going forward. For FRC, we are still working with First Headquarters to hold smaller one-day events to reduce travel and to reduce exposure. We expect to have a decision matrix coming out very soon, so stay tuned. So how do you stay informed? How do you know what's going on? This information is changing often. So there's always our website. You could also follow us on social media. I encourage everyone to sign up for the volunteer newsletter. We try and put the volunteer newsletter out with the most up-to-date information on what's going on and the information volunteers need. We will also be holding a volunteer open house. That's on October 2nd. This is also across all programs. And so this is an opportunity for you to come and learn about what roles are out there. Ask your questions about if you have any concerns or questions about what does it mean to judge virtually, or I didn't even know I could volunteer for First Lego League and First Tech Challenge, but well, yes, you can. I know we have lots of volunteers that volunteer across all programs, but it's a great opportunity to come and meet the people and ask questions. So I encourage everyone to sign up today. Last but not least, at First Chesapeake, we are hiring. We are looking for individuals 18 and older who are interested in conducting in-person and remote classroom. The compensation is $21 to $25 an hour. Again, if you're interested, it is posted on our careers page. So I don't want to miss the opportunity. You never know where we will find people. And I will now turn it over to Caitlin.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and First Chesapeake for hosting this virtual town hall. And I want to echo what Sarah said as a big thank you out there to our volunteers last year. We know that it was kind of a rocky ride and we had to reinvent everything, but we made it through because of our volunteers. And I also want to give a quick shout out to Dave Barron on the call. He is one of the first volunteer of the years. And I don't know if that got enough clout in it, or enough praise, but it just shows the caliber of the people we work with here and how awesome our volunteers are. Even though we don't have him in Virginia and DC, he helps us out a lot. So we love Dave in Virginia, DC First LEGO League. So it's going to be another interesting season for First LEGO League. I'm going to talk first about First LEGO League Challenge, which is the competitive program. We're going to be doing, everything is tentative, of course. Things change quickly around here nowadays, but we're officially holding our competition season coming up very soon, November and December of 2021. We will be operating those events in a hybrid format at this moment, meaning that judging will be held remotely the week before. We're looking at judging because I know I have some judges on the call who are thinking this is very different, but we're looking at the afternoons just for about 2 to 2.5 hours on Wednesday and Thursday. Judges would see about 6 teams between those 2 days. Robot game will be in person. We do have plans if the venue cancels last second to be able to pivot, and we'll be sharing that with teams. But all participants, very similar to First Chesapeake, will need to wear masks at all times, social distancing when appropriate. We are going to have to limit spectators, so we'll be allowing in the team members, 2 coach or mentors, and the volunteers. And we'll also be, working to set up areas for food and drinks to be outside just to keep everybody safe, because we are primarily working with an unvaccinated population with our younger kiddos, and we want to do everything we can to keep them safe. Closing ceremonies are going to be streamed via Vimeo. We're hoping to do a little bit more than what we did last year, or a lot more, but we know that was a great way to honor and celebrate the work of all our awesome teams. For teams who are not able to travel, we will be holding a remote season February of 2022. So it will be unofficial, as in we're not going to be advancing a team from that season for First Worlds, but we do want to make sure we provide opportunities to everybody. So all teams in our area, whether they competed in November or not, will be able to participate in that season. Next slide, please. So we have a decision matrix similar to First Chesapeake. Just wanted to highlight this so volunteers could see that there's going to be some different options to tournament directors. We're actually going to be meeting with key leadership over the next couple of weeks. So we have some different ways we can approach events and how we keep our community safe and keep the number of the people in the building limited. We also want to respect all of our awesome venues that are going to be hosting us. And so there may be some limitations that they have, but as you can see, we're really trying to think about all the different ways that we can make this work and offer the best possible experience to our teams, again, while keeping everybody safe. So right now, our registration system is open to start registering your teams. Teams are not able to select their tournament preferences yet, so we haven't assigned anybody. That will open up on October 1st through 10th, and we'll have a much better idea. But right now, we're planning on, again, running our events. We do have a lot of events on here, but they're obviously going to be a lot smaller than last year or in previous years to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. We do have a couple events we're still working on, you can see in the corner, but we're really, reaching far and in between, all the way from Abington to DC with our First LEGO League Challenge events. So hopefully there's something close to you. And if not, like Sarah said, we do have remote judging. So if you're not able to be with us in person, you can be with us anywhere. So next slide. Really quickly, because I know First LEGO League Explore was formerly First LEGO League Junior. We will be holding our festivals in the spring of 2022, so March through May. We're going to be putting out a tentative schedule in December. We're really, again, pushing to run these events in person, but we'll also offer virtual options. And the decision matrix on that will be coming out soon as well. So next slide. And lastly, again, we always appreciate this year, especially the flexibility. It's going to be another crazy one. I feel like if anything, we're planning for plans A, B, C, and D all at the same time. So we do have events ready on the First Inspire site for you to start applying in, so you can go and take a look. You can email us at our questions email and stay up to date at va-dcfll.org. And we really are hoping to see you this season, and we're really excited to be able to offer this again to kids who need this everywhere. So thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Jamie. Hold on, I'm going to stop sharing.
No worries.
Over to Jamie to talk about your season before we get into the questions.
Yeah, so thank you all for joining us. We are, unlike Virginia, a little bit still working through a lot of our logistics. We've reached out to our qualifying sites and are actually reformulating contract based on the situation so that we are ensuring the safety, health, and welfare of our public. Our qualifying sites we're trying to figure out a new model where a lot of it being, whether it be hybrid or remote, we're definitely going to be sticking with that. Some of our sites have a lot of rules and regulations. So in terms of us, we do a lot of contracting in that. So we're still in the midst of planning, but most of our qualifiers will be happening in the latter part of the season in terms of January timeframe. That's what we're hoping for. So if in terms of a lot of other rules and regulations, very similar to what Sarah and Caitlin went through. So if you have any questions regarding that, it's not too much of a difference beyond that. We are always, again, if you don't want to attend in person because of any sort of reason, or still like to participate maybe distance-wise, we will have a lot of online options. Dave will be talking through, can also talk through about the judging aspect, but most of our judging will be likely to be remote. We will be adopting that model that we had last year. So if you're familiar with that, it was very effective. In fact, a lot of our teams really enjoyed going through the remote time as well as our volunteers. In terms of our state tournament, that too is up in the air because being that we are university, we are playing it by ear. So we can't quite solidify a date as much as we, they are asking, and we're trying to see how things go. But like our classes at the university and our situation, everything right now is being more or less playing by ear. But there is a tentative possible date by the end of March, if not early in April. So we are working towards that aspect. So ours is a little bit behind the eight ball versus Virginia, because we always like to make sure that they show us what to do, and then we do it better. That's why okay. Thank you, Caitlin, for demonstrating that to us. We just like to copy and then pretend it's our own. But along the way, we are in fact right after this meeting we have another committee meeting. So tonight is FLL night for most of us, and we will be solidifying a lot of our logistics, especially with our qualifiers. We do have very exciting qualifying sites from PG County up to Carroll County and so on and so forth. So we have a lot of amazing qualifying sites who are just excited to get on board. And but yeah, and we do appreciate, and otherwise we cannot run this without the energy and the fuel of volunteerism. So thank you so much. As much as all of us are volunteers, we do appreciate that, as this is during our time not working during the day. So we respect and value that tremendously. But I will also turn this over to Dave and our volunteer coordinator, Kalika, if they wanted to add anything else to my very brief summary of Maryland.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, I think we're still working through a lot of the details for what our challenge season will look like in Maryland this year. But for those of you that joined us last year, I think there will still be a lot of similarities. I think one thing that we're certain of is that we will definitely have virtual options for volunteers and for teams. Just a question of how much we can do and what components of the competition we can do in person this year.
And I only want to add, I just would be remiss to just say thank you for all those volunteers that assisted us last season. I know it was very trying. It was a little bit frustrating for some, but I know the kids and I know the coaches, they was happy to be able to participate in a competition. So I want to thank all the volunteers, but stay tuned. We will have something for you soon.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing. I'm going to pull up the questions one more time here. Hold tight. Okay. There we go. So some of the questions, we actually got some of these questions on previous town halls, but since they did apply to volunteers, I wanted to make sure we were addressing them on this forum also. Will COVID safety policies differ for volunteers, students, mentors, or spectators? No, we are expecting the same adherence to the mask mandate. We're expecting everyone to, eat, outside and to follow the rules as they're changing. One of the things that I cannot stress enough is just flexibility. We are pulling plans together as quickly as we can, but things do change. Will first require vaccines for volunteers. This is First Chesapeake. We will not be requiring. However, we do encourage vaccines as a way to keep our population safe. FTC especially does still have students that may not be old enough to have gotten the vaccine. And so we do want to make sure that we're encouraging it. And I believe something went out from First headquarters on this also, but we definitely encourage it, but we will not be requiring vaccines. How do we plan to enforce safety protocols at events? And then will there be penalties for teams? And what about volunteers? Absolutely. Not wearing a mask or refusing to wear a mask or abide by any of the rules in place to keep us safe will mean immediate disqualification of a team. They will be asked to leave along with volunteers if they cannot. We are putting our policies out early. We are trying to make sure that we are clear with everyone so that people understand what is expected when they walk in the door. Again, if people are not comfortable with any of our regulations or what we're asking people to do to keep us safe, we have lots of volunteer options that are virtual. So I encourage you to look into those.
And Sarah, can I just add one thing as well to the being enforced? I really think too that one of the foundations that makes all of our organizations so great is the idea of gracious professionalism and cooperation and our core values. And so I really feel like just making sure the messaging is clear is that this is what we do to protect our community, and this is what gracious professionals do, and just really hone in to what our organization is about when we're putting out some of these asks of our community. So hopefully we can get everybody in a really positive state of mind behind these things as well.
Yeah. And last year,
Sarah, I'd like to add something about vaccines. Yeah. Okay, just the fact that we may be in venues that require vaccines.
Correct.
And if that's the case, we're going to, whatever that venue requires, we're going to require as well. So we have like our set of standards, but we also have to follow whatever that school's or venue standard is as well. That's all. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate that. No. Contact tracing procedures will CHS use for events. Ron, I may need your help on this. We turn it over to the Department of Health.
Yeah, that's correct. We basically use those consent and release forms. We gather all the consent and release. We basically lock them up in a locked box that only the staff person on site has access to because it has personal information in it. And we basically keep them. And if we need to inform the Board of Health, we'll actually give the list of folks to the Board of Health so that they can contact. So we're not doing any of the, we're not involved in it in the middle. It's the health department's the one that's informing folks and contacting them and so on. And then, we're shredding them afterwards. So
correct. Everyone else, feel free to jump in. And now I open up to questions. I don't know if we have any in the, safety goggles. Yes, I do see that in the, yes, safety goggles will also still be required for safety. We're all talking about masks. We forget about safety goggles. Thanks for the reminder.
And I will add that I think that most of the events we've been having, the off-season events, people have been wearing their masks and it hasn't really been a major problem.
It really hasn't.
We just had kickoff for FTC this past weekend, and we had probably 60, 70 people at those venues at 3 different locations combined, and no mask issues whatsoever. So people are complying and trying to stay safe.
We really appreciate it. We know it's an amazing community, and we're excited to see everyone continue to be part of it. If anyone attended kickoff, they'll understand why there were ducks on one of our slides. I would give everybody a few more seconds to ask questions. Everyone's quiet. See if anybody has anything else they want to add. Craig is asking, do we have a list of critical need positions for volunteers so we can get the word out? Our website will have the roles updated. We have, for Chesapeake, we have redefined the roles based on the need, based on this hybrid situation, since there are different roles from a traditional event. And so Ryan, can you do you mind putting the website link? If you have it, I can grab it and stick it out there. So that you can see the roles. The biggest ask we have we're going to have referees on site, so people that are comfortable being on site with referees. That will be a huge volunteer need, as well as judges. We're always looking for judges. We're always looking for new faces and for people to learn. The question is, when will we know the characteristics for events relative to the timing, 2 weeks, 3 weeks out? Obviously, we're going to give you guys as much notice as we possibly can. We would like that to be 3 weeks plus, in all honesty. Looking at the projections on COVID, I think we will be able to predict within 2 to 3 weeks out. Ron, do you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, what we're trying to do is do the 2 weeks out.
Yes.
On them, so everybody has enough time to plan and rearrange if you need to. But I will say, we all know that from issues in the past, the local organizations may make changes at the last minute, and we're going to have to comply with them. So, I mean, a venue may decide, hey, especially, our universities seem to be more open to holding events this year, for our events at least, and. Yes. They may change at the last minute and say, hey, we got too many cases on campus. We're sorry, we're not going to be able to do it, or you can only have 50 people or whatever. So in those cases, we will try to, if you want to switch to another venue, we'll try to switch you to another venue, but we will comply with whatever that venue says. We'll pretty much have to.
Yeah. In Virginia and DC for SPLEGO League, we are also doing our best to get the information out more ahead of time. But we also kind of have a similar time frame set up where within 2 weeks we're really going to try to make sure everything is locked in. And the one thing that will be nice is, because judging is remote, judging won't be impacted. So if a venue does have to pull last second, I know we're working on kind of a backup plan of how do we shift the robot game. Nothing will have to be impacted by judging. So we were hoping for teams and for volunteers. That's one thing that won't get thrown off track with all the uncertainty. But how robot game and reffing works, that might be changing up until the night till, depending, like what Ron said, on the venue. But judging would be good to go still.
Yeah. Great questions, though. It's good to know we have our scorekeepers. The question is, what source are we using for the COVID scenario graph? Are there other scenarios you're considering? I believe, Ryan, do you have the link to the COVID-wise? There we go. Awesome. COVID Act Now. And I want to turn this over to Ron, because he is absolutely my numbers guy when it comes to this. Ron, I think you're on mute. Are you not? I can't hear him.
No, I'm on mute.
Okay.
Can you tell me the question again so I can?
Okay. The question was, what source are we using for the COVID scenarios, and are there any other scenarios that we're considering?
And I'm not sure exactly what they mean by any other scenarios.
If you want to be more specific.
In that chart, I mean, we're basically going off that chart, that website that COVID Act Now, has it pulls data from a whole bunch of different places, including CDC, including Johns Hopkins, including the New York Times. And it's just because a lot of smaller locations don't report to the same places.
This may be FLL. Scenario D.
So it's all kind of all the way over the place. The graph said scenario D. Okay, so the scenario D is so I see what they're actually talking about, the model that we used.
With the shaded area.
So that model is about a dozen different colleges that actually got together and pulled from all, I think it's 20 different models across the country, and they made a composite of those models, and that's what that one is. The scenario D side of it is really the one that's based on vaccination rates. So it basically says if the vaccination rate stays nationally at 60%, that's how that graph is going to look. And you can see it's actually following it pretty well. The next version of that chart is what's being worked on right now, and I actually contribute to that as well. But what that one is going to do is take into account the waning vaccines and how effective they are. So like you look at that Pfizer one, they just came out with a thing that said 6 months later it's only 77% instead of 95%. So it's taken into account those things where how many of the people are going to actually get the booster dose and all that stuff. So we're just trying to look at those models. If you look at those models, the in the details, it looks like you can see there's a peak mid-October, there's another peak mid-March, which are right smack in the middle of our all of our seasons basically. And so that's why we're that's where those are kind of coming from, where we decided that we needed to have that matrix, and we need to take that matrix and actually take different scenarios in if that model is incorrect. There is an A, B, and C version of that all look better because they assume that everybody's getting vaccinated and so on. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think hopefully.
Maybe too much information. I don't know.
No, never too much information. If the venue makes COVID changes that makes it impossible to run a competition, what is our backup plan? We definitely are talking to many venues so that we have multiple venues. So if schools tell us we're not going to be able to, we're looking at commercial. Obviously, that matrix shows that we can scale down to as few as 8 teams. Obviously, the number's getting any higher than the number that's on it goes indefinite on that. 8 teams is where we're going. But we will continue to revisit and problem solve and come up with solutions to bring robotics to kids, whether it's remote or in person, but to do the best we can by the teams.
I mean, from an FTC perspective, particularly at this point, is because we're going to be having them soon, is we're looking at schools, we're looking at colleges, and we're looking at commercial venues. So, we have a fallback on all of those, that we've got places that we're trying to make sure we do have a place to go. If we can't hold it here, we're going to try someplace else. The negative part of it is, and I think Caitlin kind of ran into it a little earlier when she was talking about venues, is, we may not be able to get one in your hometown like we used to, right? There may not be any place available, so you might have to go a little distance. But we're, again, we're trying to have enough venues out there so you don't have to travel too far to get to them.
I think Jamie has something.
I do. Well, I was going to add that in Maryland, we're working with our qualifying sites. We're specifically adding a aspect that if something should happen, we would have a follow-up back plan. So a lot of our qualified sites are preparing not only to hold if they do a hybrid situation or in-person situation, but they actually have a plan to then go online. So we specifically that's why we're taking a little time, because we're intentionally trying to make sure that if, just like a snow plan, that if something would happen, they have that fallback plan. And because we don't want to lose that momentum, the volunteers and stuff. So if you do volunteer, just be mindful that, you know, that we're working with what we have in terms of that, and just be prepared that you may end up going online. And usually that will probably be, unlike a snow plan, decided much earlier, because weather is very unpredictable versus this aspect. So that's kind of what Maryland's going after, unless the situation is where the team is going completely online. So just wanted to add that to our conversation here as you know.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
and thanks for sharing.
With Virginia DC First Lego League, our season's a little closer, so we've started thinking about that backup plan already. And essentially, our plan right now, obviously, we're trying to have the most candid conversations with our sites right now to make sure that we're aware of everything going into it. And we've already had some sites have to change or move to other. We might have had to look in other places just because we already sense that there, were going to be some issues. But right now, our plan, again, judging if an event has to move or it becomes too restrictive and we just can't, like Ron said, we can keep it where in First Lego League we only have 6 teams on site at a time, and the teams in First Lego League are a lot smaller. The other backup plan would be to remote judging is already being done remote, so that wouldn't change anything. What we would end up doing is letting the teams at that tournament, we would giving them a set of time to record their robot games, similar to what we did last year, and they would be submitting those. So we would push the timeline back a little bit, but we would advance from that. And it has been brought up, well, other people might do in-person robot game. The goal is for everyone to be able to do in-person robot game, but we feel like if everybody in the same event are being judged in the same way, whether it be in person or remote, we can still advance from that. So we're working on how we communicate that to our teams within the next few weeks, honestly. But that's kind of our backup plan right now, is just to transition to a fully remote event. Because of our volunteers, we know how to do that from last year. So.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing, Caitlin. There is a question about the timeline for FRC events. Ron, announcements talked about.
Yeah. I guess, when we had our first Chesapeake town hall, I don't even know what it was, last month, sometime towards the end of last month, we talked about I actually showed a draft decision matrix on it. First headquarters at the time was kind of wanted us to do 40 teams for every one of the events, regardless of what the conditions were. And, since then, not only us, but other FRC partners throughout the country, we're kind of looking at, can we make that a smaller number? Can we do, instead of having a 2-day 40-team event, can we have a single day 18-team event, and so on? So scalability is what we've been talking with First Headquarters about. They've said that they're going to come out with the guidance on that sometime around the middle of October. Okay, or by the middle of October. So I'm
mark your calendars.
I'm optimistic that we'll be able to scale that based on those current rates, because otherwise it's hard to put 40 teams in place, even with one person per team there. And the volunteers, we're still at 100 people. It's like not very good.
Correct. All right. We did share the volunteer roles, where you can find the volunteer roles for the season, if anybody wants to take a look. Again, we continue to look at those and change them. We are looking at adding a pit admin role, which is not out there right now, but we are looking with allowing more volunteers on site. I think that's a valuable role to be added in, so you may see that soon. What about key volunteer roles and signups? They usually happen before November. And this is with FRC, I assume, right? With this. That is true. All of our timelines are definitely being, compressed. They were last year and they will continue to be this year, just because we don't have the answers we need going to the season. I do believe that the key volunteer roles and signups have moved to January.
Yeah, I mean, what will happen is
I want to say
once
headquarters gave us till January.
well, actually, they'll be able to, for key volunteer roles for sign up in VMS, the roles will end up in VMS by the end of October. And the reason that the events don't show up in your dashboard yet, right? Because we don't have them all preloaded in the system. They will have them, they've requested to have us have them loaded into the system by mid-October. So we will, and that's the whole thing. I think Jamie kind of touched on it, is we're trying to negotiate with places to make sure that if we put down we're going to have it at this place, we don't get kicked out.
Yeah.
And what is our backup plan and so on. And, if we have 40 teams, what does it take? If we have 18, what does it take? And if we had 12, what does it take size-wise? Because obviously FRC is a major consumer of space.
Yeah. Great questions, guys.
Yep.
I'm on mute this time. Well, we want to thank everybody for coming out and for watching this video, because we are trying as a community to make sure we're communicating as much information as we have when we have it. I know I speak for all of us that please reach out with any questions or concerns. We do love our volunteers and we love hearing from you. So let us know. Some of our best ideas on how to do this have come from volunteers. We rely on you guys to help us with the problem solving and information. And so please reach out and be in touch. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. Otherwise, good night. Thanks everyone for coming.